So in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to sell a business. We're going to talk about valuations, how our business is valued. We're going to talk about how to increase the value of your business. We're going to talk about what you need to do in preparation when you're thinking about selling a business. We're going to talk about where to advertise if you're thinking about selling a business. Should you hire a broker? Should you try to advertise it on your own? We're also going to talk about financing. Are businesses sold in cash? Are they owner financing? And then we're going to talk about the escrow process. To help us with that, we have Shawn Ahrabi with Pacific Intern Consulting. He helps business owners sell their business. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Fine. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Great. So let's get right to the point. How do you determine the value of a business?
That's a very good question. Okay, if somebody asks me the value of a business, we're talking about all the businesses are out there, is somewhere between 3 to 4 times the net year income. So we are not talking about the sales. We are not talking about, anything else, just the net that as an owner, I can take home after all my expenses. Of course, before, personal taxes and everything, but that's what I'm taking home. That's the net income, we call that. That's the value. But that it depends on the business. So if a business has a lot of inventory, for example, $1 million of inventory, more or less, something like that, then you cannot ask for 3 times or 4 times that value. And the reason being because the buyer not just has to pay for your business, now they have to pay for $1 million or more of your inventory. So it's very hard to get inventory financed. The businesses, if it's financeable, obviously you can get financed. But if it's not, so this money has to come up cash, or there have to be another consideration, paying, partially and all that. So it opens a new earth. So for that reason, usually those businesses are valued a bit less than 3 to 4 times. That's how much less. Obviously, that is depending on how interested the buyer is, how interested the seller is to make this deal happen, and how much the inventory is, and all that come in the equation. So you start negotiating. So, and then there are some businesses. There are ethnic group businesses. For example, you have a Japanese restaurant, 99%, if you don't see the owner is Japanese, you may not go there. That is in people's mind. If it matters or not, we don't know that, but that's what it is. So if it's ethnic group related business, that means only somebody from that ethnic can buy. It makes your buyer's pool so small. So for that reason, sometimes you cannot ask for what the value of the business would be if that wasn't, ethnic group related. So there are some few all things that I don't want to go all over. So, but the point here is that the value at the end is negotiated between the buyer and seller. But having this in mind, that 3 to 4 times the net year income is a good place to start. Then you have to take in count everything else that matters. Let's talk about financing. I think that is the most important. People always ask me, they believe.
Well, before that, I wanted to dig a little bit deeper. The 3 to 4 times based on the net income, there's people that say my business makes X, but then on the taxes, they report a different amount. So how does that dealt with? And then what happens to businesses that are high cash businesses, or maybe the books don't reflect what the business actually makes? How is that determined?
Good. Okay, that's a good question too. So you have to understand something. If you are holding your money and you are not reporting it, let's say your sales is $1 million, and you're reporting every year half of it. Yeah. $500,000, for example. So obviously then you're reporting your income as less, or net income is less as well, right? So you have a $500,000 there, you taken in, let's say $200,000 of it is profit, and the rest is obviously the cost of doing business. So for 10 years, let's just imagine you own this business and every year you made a $200,000 and did not report it, did not pay taxes on it. So how much money did you already make? That's $2 million. So you have to understand that if you are not reporting your full income, your full net income, creating expenses or less reporting of your sales, this all will affect obviously the sales of your business. So if there are some add backs, we call that add back. For example, your business net income on the tax return is 100,000, but in reality is 250,000. So $150,000 is not there. So then we ask the owner to give us a list. Where is the money? And this guy says, for example, I am paying a year $100,000, $10,000, $20,000 for my car expenses, gas, mortgage, which is acceptable even by banks. There are some at the banks, they are acceptable by banks.
Like,
so you can go to the bank and say, this business shows $100,000, but here is our ad backs, for example, the car. Or somebody has hired on the paper the children, they never worked there. So that is a way of paying your children, and that is an add back. As long as you can prove they are really not involved in my business, they are just paying them that way. Or you're paying your wife, or your wife's cars, or some type of entertainment that is personal, but you running through your company. So anything that is provable is acceptable, even by banks.
do most people look at the taxes or a profit and loss, or buyers? What type of information do they look at?
Yeah, both. I mean, I sold just a few months back one of my businesses. In this business, every penny, whatever is even cash, and I'm talking about penny. If I have a cash at the end of the month, like $10,251.25 in the envelope, like this one that I get every week or so from my staff. So they write on it how much is on it, and up to the cent. For example, this one has a 55 cents on it. I take every cent and deposit in the bank. So when it comes time to sell, I just give them my bank information, my tax return, and then I tell them, hey, I'm not running even my own personal car through my business. So everything is there. But if it's not there, so you have taken it, so the banks or even the buyer, they look on tax return first. So if tax return looks good enough, obviously that's the best, because if they need to finance it, they can take the tax return to a bank or any financier. They look at it, say, hey, this business makes money, let's give them the money. Easy. But if you have to come with add backs, it means you have to give us a P&L in that, which is the profit and loss reality. So you have to prove it. So both of them, they look at it. Now, some buyers and most banks would not accept all add backs. For example, you say, hey, I go with my family to a restaurant, and so this is add back. As a buyer or as a bank, how would I know? You went really with your staff, with your partners, or you just want to add back this expense, so increase your net. You're saying, I took my wife out here, so it's not acceptable. Or some people say, oh, last year I bought 10 computers, and 7 of them was for my children, for my house. Nobody knows that. How are we going to know that? How is bank is going to know you really bought this 10 computer for your business, or you took them out to your wife, to your friends, whatever. So there are some that you cannot really document, or some even you can document, but it's not acceptable because it's not provable easy. So that's the buyer is going to look for everything, and mostly they're going to look obviously for everything is provable. If it's not provable, it doesn't exist.
So it basically hurts the valuation of the business if it's not provable, basically, in other words. And
Absolutely.
And then let
Yes.
me ask you this, like, are there certain industries that sell for better multiples than other industries? Like, so for example, like a restaurant,
Of course.
what type of multiple versus maybe
Yeah.
like a service-based business versus like a
Yes.
retail store versus an online store? Can you give us some examples of,
Yes. I mean, as long as you see, the bigger a business is, value wise, the easier is to sell and the more multiple you can get for it or more money you can get for it. For example, if the value of your business is 10 million or $20 million, you're going to find easier to sell it than a business is 100,000 or $200,000. Okay.
why is that?
So, yeah, because there are professional buyers out there. Okay. So if I'm buying a business over $5 million, I am not buying it to make my ends meet most of the time.
Yeah.
I am a professional. I may own other businesses. I have experience with owning businesses or running businesses. So I know what I'm looking for. And most of the time, these people have already financing in place from sometimes from personal investors to banks, right? So they come with their lawyers, with their accountants, and it's very easy. They look at everything and then they give you an offer. Most of the time, those are not going to pay you that $10 million all up front. They're going to tell you, okay, we pay you $5 million. Then for next 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, we pay you this and that amount of money until we fill that. But it's easier to deal with them, and uh, and is easier even as a seller when you have such a business in that value. You have your own lawyer, so you let the lawyer talk, and more or less you then get involved. So it's easier. The smaller is the business, under $5 million. Mostly people are buying that want to go there and they do the work every day and take money home. So these businesses is harder to finance because the business has no value. Most people don't understand that. A business has no equity, right? Unless there's millions and millions of dollars of equipment or whatever. Even those equipment, when you buy them, they are millions and millions. When you want to sell them, nobody going to give you even 5% or 10% the value. So in essentially, a business is not like a house that you say, I have an equity there. The bank says, give me 10%, give me 5%, I give you the rest of the money, because they know if you don't pay, they're going to take your house, and the house has a value, ground and value. Business doesn't have a value if you cannot run the business, even if the best businesses you can buy. And that's happened to me many times. I sold a business that runs for 20 years, incredible money making. New owner comes in. Within first year, they're bankrupt. Now they're looking for somebody to blame for it. And most of the time they're going to go to the seller that you lied to me, even though they did it. Even if they lied, by law, you have the obligation to check this business, go through your due diligence, do whatever you need to do, ask whatever you need to ask, hire whoever you need to hire to make sure this business is making the money that the seller is telling you or they shown you on the paper. If you are not doing that for whatever reason, and later on you find out the seller lied to you, it's on you. So that is the reality. For that reason, the banks are looking for collateral. So you have to have a house or some other way of collateral in order to get financing for bank. Even the business is doing well. So for that reason, uh, it's not very easy to buy small price business because most of those buyers don't have that collateral for the money. Let's say you need a $3 million loan. Do you have equity of $3 million in your home that the bank can take as a collateral and give you the money? So these are things you have to take in consideration. So that's why it just gets harder to sell that smaller businesses.
I love it. What about, you said equipment, sometimes you can only get back like 5% of whatever it costs. What about inventory? Do you usually get 100% back of whatever the inventory is? Or,
Inventory,
and is it,
inventory, if a buyer is buying the inventory, for example, he buys your business and there is whatever amount of inventory, Obviously, they pay you whatever the inventory never comes with the business. It has nothing to do with business unless the seller indicates that I have, I don't know, 100,000 inventory, 30,000 inventories included in the sale price. And most of the time it's not. You sell a restaurant, uh, there's only $5,000 inventory. You have to write a check and give it to them. It has nothing to do with the value of the business. So uh, if the buyer who buy the business, yes, they need that inventory. The inventory makes the business run,
Yeah.
right? Without inventory, you have nothing. So then they pay whatever you paid for it, obviously, right? The value you paid, the price you paid to buy them, at that price you're selling to them. Now, but if you're closing down, let's say your business, and you have $100,000 of inventory there, uh, you know what? It's just a luck. Who wants to buy and how much they're gonna pay? You can get 20%, you can get 50% what you paid for it. So
Yeah. Are,
that's
are, are businesses are more valuable when they can run without the owner, right? If they're like,
yes.
yes,
A good business, a really good business is a business that works there even when you are not there. So if
that's an
you are
actual business.
as a owner, so if you are the owner and you have to work there every day, open and close and all that, obviously, is a still value to it because somebody is going to come and do the same thing. And what obviously is less value. If you can say, "Hey, my business runs absentee owner or owner involvement is nothing or little or whatever," obviously, well, it's more value because then investors are interested. Of course, it has to have a certain amount of a net income for an investor to be interested. But investors would be interested on it. Let's say, as I said, you have a business. You say, I have managers run the business. I make every month, $20,000 out of this business. I just go there. I don't know if it's a restaurant. I go there to eat. I am not involved in day-to-day business. So obviously, you have people interested in that as long as they make sure that the managers are, planning to stay and nobody is leaving, at least not soon, and all that stuff. You have to go through different kind of due diligence for that kind of a business. But yes, it's at least I don't know if some cases wouldn't add to the value because the income is whatever it is, but it helps to sell a lot faster.
What's easier to make money, owning a business or owning rental properties?
Definitely owning a business. Definitely own a business. You can make not as much money that you can make in a business from anything else. Not investments, not stock market, not properties, nothing.
I I
That
I,
doesn't.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
Meaning that like rental properties have a cap of how much you can rent it for. A business you can grow it as large as you want.
that's up to business growth. It depends on some businesses, obviously, in areas or whatever. Like it's a
Yeah.
restaurant or it's a bar. What you're gonna do? You can't sell your food to New York, right? Uh, but um, uh, but yes, essentially, most businesses these days you can really run bigger than you used to. Well, for example, when I was selling businesses in the beginning, talking about 2006.
Hmm.
So I had to make appointment with, let's say I find somebody that was willing to sell the business or willing to consider to sell the business. So I had to make an appointment, go to this person and sit down, talk to them. And he tells me what he has, how much money. And then he tells me, I want $10 million for my business and the business make only $100,000. So then but then the appointment was at the time that the seller is convenient, right? It's not on my convenience. So he says, hey, come at 12 o'clock. It's my lunchtime. My secretary is not here. So I don't want anybody finds out I'm selling the business or considering, which it makes sense. So you go in there at 12 o'clock. You have 1 hour, hour and a half meeting. You come back and then we talk about, I'm in Los Angeles area. We're talking about, if I want at 12 o'clock be, let's say, in downtown and I'm living about an hour from downtown, for example, I have to go out 2 hours before that because it's a one accident on the freeway. You sit there for the next 3 hours probably, right? So you get out, let's say at 10:30 from your office. You go to this appointment that is 1 hour away. You have 1 hour appointment. By the time you come back, the day is gone. right? What can you do between 8 and 10 and then after 3 p.m., right? So at some point, I don't remember when it was, 2009, 10, something like that, I decided not to see clients anymore. Do everything online, computer and phone. That's it. So I got phone numbers from New York. So it means I'm in New York, right? So that time it was possible to get, phone number from different city. Before that wasn't. You had to get even your area phone number. So anyway, and then if I contacted somebody, said, hey, come over, I said, oh, I'm in New York. And if I was talking to somebody in New York, I would say, I'm in California. So then I told them, hey, I'm not going to come and see you. If you want to sell your business, that is how I work, that is what I do, and that is, the way it's going to work. If you need somebody to see a local, then you need another broker. I got very firm on that. And in 20 years doing this, I lost one listing. I got everyone who wanted to sell, I get the listing from them. Just one listing. But why did I mention that? Very funny thing is, before me starting doing this, so I was only able to work in Los Angeles area, right? Because I had to go and see every client, every customer. At the most, I could go to Orange County. I never even went to San Diego, right? Because it's 3 hours away, 4 hours away. So when I start doing that, now I start working in Northern California. I sold so many businesses in Oakland, in San Francisco, never seen the buyer, never seen the seller, right? I never could think about it that I have to go, how am I going to sell a business in San Francisco? How am I going to go see the business and see the owners and have those meetings? And then I expanded to states that there is not necessary to have a license to sell a business. For example, Texas. You don't need, because it's considered consulting and they considered professional. It means the business owners, buyer and seller, they are not, homeowners and all that. So they should know what they're doing in the perfect world. So you don't need a license to sell a business. Everyone can sell a business if they have the knowledge, they know how to do or what to do, whatever. So they can. So I started working in Texas and a few other areas. And the biggest business I sold, I don't want to bring numbers, but the biggest I sold was outside of California without having any license. And never saw the buyer, never saw the seller, only, in between, via phone and computer. So that opened up doors for me that even today, other business brokers cannot even think about it. When I talk to other brokers and I tell them, hey, I never see a client, say, what? Nobody's going to work with you. They don't know how much money I make. So,
I love it.
Honestly, not seeing the client. Believe me, my business, I'm a single. I'm just me, and I have one secretary that does the phone calls and all that. So I don't have a group of other brokers or agents working for me. But they are in my business a lot of merger and acquisition, M&A companies. They are in New York, $1 million, billion-dollar companies. And if they find out from $5 million and up, there is a company, even in San Francisco, wants to sell, they are next day in the airport, in the airplane, they go at the see this guy in San Francisco. They fly over, right? I don't know how they can make money flying from airport to airport and see client and at the end get the listing or not get the listing. It's not, when you go see client doesn't mean you're going to get the listing. They sometimes kick tires. They want to know if, they want to decide to sell it or not, how much is value. And as soon as you tell them the reality, hey, your company makes $500,000, you can only get $2.5 million. And he was thinking, I'm going to get $25 million for it. You're out of that office with no listing and the disappointed seller that never want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So, but there are people doing that. And, but I think I got this, those listings, really large one, 50 million and up. So, the knowledge.
Yeah, knowing. Well, I think my father sold his business maybe like 2 years ago, and I didn't know that businesses with large inventory sell at a lower multiple. I had heard that businesses sell at 3 to 4. So when you said that, I was like, oh, that's really interesting because that justifies the price that it sold because it had pretty large inventory as well too. So let me ask you this: as a business owner, let's say, what should somebody be doing to prepare for the sale of their business? Like, do they need to contact an accountant to clean up their books? Do they need to get certain documents ready? Like, what documents do they get ready? Like, what advice would you give to somebody preparing to
Well,
sell their business?
the best thing is if they don't have really good financials that somebody can look at them and tell them, okay, how much this business is making, they should go and find a good CPA or even a business appraiser, because appraiser are looking for those things, and they get advice from them and hire people that clean up their books and bring up their financials. Because if they want to sell, at some point, if there is a buyer is going to ask for those, and now you have to go and do that what I just told you, right? So you better do that up front. And then if you have a CPA at the lowest, an accountant has prepared them, the buyers have more confidence that, hey, these are prepared by this CPA, and they can contact the CPA, talk to the CPA, and or their CPA, their lawyers can talk to that particular CPA and get even more detailed information because now that person has all the paperwork there, right? So that would help. So have realistic expectation. That is the biggest problem you have with sellers. What I mean by that is somebody says, for example, my business makes $100,000 profit a year, right? My total sales is, for example, $350,000. Fine. So I'm telling him, okay, so your company is maybe $350,000 worth. And he gets mad at me telling him that, and because he expects $3 million. So I'm asking him, where did you get this number? I mean, you tell me where you're getting this number, then I understand. And he said, oh, the potential. 10 years from now, this company is going to make $20 million sales and it's going to make $10 million profit. I tell him, so what you're saying is somebody should buy your business today, work 10 years, spend money, invest huge amount of money, training, people, inventory, and all of this. And 10 years from now, go to that $10 million sales. But you want the money for his work today. So somebody pay you for the work he's gonna do, for the investment he's gonna do for next 10 years. And they will look at it this way. And then I ask him at the end sometimes, okay, how much would you pay your company, your own company? If you would be buying your own business, would you pay even $500,000 for the business? You want 10 million for it? And they have no answer.
Yeah, it's basically like giving them a realistic expectation of what reality is. So let me ask you this. Let's say somebody wants to sell their business. Obviously, they can do it on their own if they wanted to.
Yes.
Probably not recommendable. So let's talk about, if you wanted to do it on your own, where would you advertise it? And then two, if you wanted to hire a broker, what do you look for in a broker when hiring a business broker to help you, and what are the advantages of having a business broker help you?
Well, if you have experienced business broker, I have to say something before that because that happens a lot. I go to a seller and the seller tells me, yesterday was this guy here and shows me the business card and then says, this guy said my business is $10 million worth. And I am sitting there and telling him your business is $3 million worth. So obviously I go with the analogy and then I ask him at the end, as I said, I ask you, would you pay $10 million for your business? And I tell him, you know what, give honest answer. Would you pay $10 million for your own business if you wanted to buy? You know your business, you know your inventory, you know your income. And the answer usually is no, right? Or they don't want to say yes at least. So that's it, another no. So I tell him the broker wants just to get the listing. Be aware of it. It is like a house, is like a car. If your house in your neighborhood, is $1 million worth, everybody's selling more or less for the same amount of money, and a broker comes to you and say, give me the listing, I evaluate your home at $2 million or at 1.5 million, which is 40% above your neighborhood or the selling price of your neighborhood. Shouldn't you think there is what's going on here? Why, if my neighbor is selling the same house for 1 million, I'm going to get $2 million for my house? These are unfortunately like every other business. They are crooks. So they sign you up for 2 years, 3 years, sometimes even more listing. So that's exclusive listing. It means you can, even if you sell it yourself, to your son, to your uncle, whatever in future, let's say months from now, you still have to pay whatever you agreed, 10% or so, to that broker, even though did nothing, right? So, or you sell on your own, you go get another broker. Let's say a year from now, you get another broker, say, hey, this guy lied to me, and you get another broker, and this broker is selling to the right price. You still have to pay the
The
original
crook.
broker.
Yeah.
You have exclusive listing. So you have to have an alarm going on when somebody, if you know in your heart the value of your business. So if somebody come and tells you really 2, 3, 4, 5 times of that value, you should not think, oh my God, the greed, I'm going to get 10 million for my business. You signing up your business for 3 years now, you cannot, most of the time, you cannot get from under this listing.
Yeah, you can't exit it out. So let me ask you this. Two things came up. If I wanted to advertise it, where would I advertise it? And then two, in real estate, obviously there's comps for real estate. Are the comps available for businesses as well too? And then how do you find they're not available for businesses? Like meaning, here's a restaurant.
They are really not comps because businesses are different. So as I said, you can't say a business that's down the street, a restaurant sold for $3 million, your restaurant maybe be worth only $500,000 because this guy, for example, was having Italian food and you're having Chinese food, for example, even though you have the same amount of net income, right? Because only Chinese people are going to be interested to buy your Chinese restaurant. Italian restaurant, everyone can buy. I can buy, you can buy, Chinese can buy, Japanese can buy. So that's how it had, embedded itself. So for that reason, that's why I said in the beginning, 3 to 4 times a good thing to look at it, any income, but it can be a lot less than that. It can be a lot more, not a lot more. It can be a bit more than that, a bit more, but it could be a lot less than that.
I've heard that plumbing businesses can go like 7 times or 6 times the multiples.
No, not really. There was
Times.
sometimes is a pick on something, right? 2000 maybe 5 or so, when everybody was building and everybody was remodeling and things, and then it somehow popped to those companies that they were doing nothing. They were just middlemen. They were advertising. We do this, we do remodeling, your kitchen, your whatever. And then if they had a business, they had a customer, they would find somebody to do the job, right? They were middlemen doing nothing. Still, there are a lot of them on internet. You find out they are very good in marketing, so that's all they know, nothing else. And then they had some, so. These companies at some point, they were making $2 million profit a year, right? Because people were nearly, I don't know why, people were really not looking because their value of their house went so up, or they were telling them, hey, if you spend $200,000, the value is going to be double what it is, for example, which it was happening, as you know, in California especially. So people were spending they were in a hurry to spend $200,000 on their homes, right? They were not looking that they could do this job for 50 grand too.
Yeah.
And because the value of the house was going up, it was easy to finance. So at the same companies, they were financing $200,000, adding to their to their home loan, and doing some remodeling for them. So those companies had, at some point, people were buying those companies. So I never sold one, even though I had the opportunity, because I always thought that kind of business is a business. A year from now can come and you get sued, and the broker is the first one sued, always, right? So at least they cannot go anywhere with the broker suing the broker, but you have to spend time, go to court, maybe pay lawyers. I stay away from gas station, I stay away from car washes, I stay away from that kind of businesses. So that's why since 2006 I'm doing this. Never was even named in a lawsuit, and there were lawsuits happening after I sold the business. Never even was named in one. So I control my desire for making a lot of money, where I maybe think should something come and bite me, and it has happened. A lot of people lost their licenses. So anyway, but this is a peak that sometimes happen, and I wouldn't go for that. There were, I don't want to bring name, but they were companies. They were selling franchise for exercising.
So,
And they were charging people $200,000. Those franchises don't exist anymore.
so let's say I've heard of Biz Buy Sell. I think that's a platform to advertise.
Yeah, that's the Biz Buy Sell, and there is in California is BizBen, Biz Ben. BizBen. These two are really the largest one. I'm gonna say when you go California, as well as nationwide is Biz Buy Sell, but there are number of other sites you can advertise.
How do I find out at what multiple a business sells?
Well, I know I'm gonna say always go. I'm gonna give you one example. One guy goes buys a business, and just buyers and sellers, they go each other. We don't want to sell brokers. We don't want to, go to broker. We don't want to take lawyers and all that. So this guy pays $2 million by this guy's unbelievable good going business. And this was really unbelievable good going business. I don't want to bring business, the name or even the type of business that may somebody hear that and be familiar. The deal is closed. It's all done and everybody's happy. The reason that the seller wanted to sell, by the way, to make it, I guess, believable, I don't know why. I have a sickness that is going to kill me in near future. I'm going to die from this sickness. I'm not bringing any of those up. So this buyer buys it, knows the business, sees all the paperwork, everything well. 3 months later, 3 blocks up, a new business opened that does the same thing, and that is the seller who sold it to this guy, his business to $5 million, and opened another one, exactly the same business, 3 blocks down the road, and contacted all his customers, telling them, I moved my business, I'm here now.
Oh my goodness.
This guy, the buyer, within a week, lost 90% of the business. Right? Customers don't know, customers don't care, but they know the familiar face, familiar everything, and customer comes in, you say, hey George, how are you? Come on in. So, why? Because the buyer didn't want to have a broker, the seller didn't have it, the buyer could have gone and said, okay, I'm going to pay a broker whatever fee, or a business lawyer.
And then they would have included that in the contract, like a non-compete clause, basically.
Non-compete, depending on the business, can be even non-compete in entire California, for example, depending on the business. If you have a product you're selling to California, you can. If you have a product you're selling in Texas, California, and I don't know, New York, you can put that there. You cannot compete indirectly or directly in 3 states. Or as a restaurant, you cannot compete 10 miles radius from my restaurant.
So that seller couldn't get sued because there wasn't a non-compete clause and there wasn't anything stopping him from doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. So my point is, sometimes I have seen buyer. I tell my buyer, go hire somebody to go through the books. I am a broker and you're gonna sign 20 different places that the broker did not recommend me to buy this business. Because we as a broker, we don't look on the financials. Buyer gives me financials, I give it to the seller gives me the financials, I give it to the buyer.
Who looks at the books? Like what are some of the companies?
The buyer. That's buyer's job.
But who can if I was a buyer, who can I hire? Like what are some names of some companies?
CPA, business appraiser, business evaluation, business job, anything that is related to the business, that somebody, you can hire an appraiser, pay him, I don't know, $2,000-3,000. If you want to buy a business for $500,000, you don't want to spend $3,000, you're already losing.
Where do I find a business appraiser?
You can Google it. They're all there. CPA, find your own CPA. Go to your CPA. If you have a good CPA and you know this CPA for years and all that, just go and tell him, hey, CPA, how much you would charge me? Find out how much this company makes money.
Is it better, if I want to know the value of my business, is it better to call 3 brokers and ask them for their opinion, or hire a CPA and ask them for one opinion?
You see, I have come
or not a CPA, a business broker. Because I
have come to really to the belief that at least 90% of sellers, they know the value of their business. Okay, so call 2 or 3 brokers if you like, and get from them opinion. Keep in mind, if I call and somebody tells it's $2 million your business worth, it doesn't mean it's going to sell it for $2 million. If I get an offer at $1 million and I go to my seller and the seller accepts it, it's sold for $1 million. So it is a broker opinion, and then the broker opinion is based on information I'm getting from this guy. I'm not checking this information. I don't know how true they are or not, or where he's making mistakes or he's not making mistakes, or what his belief is. There are some business owner, they take the money and they spend, they really don't know how much money they make. Right? So it tells me, hey, my sales is $2 million. I make $500,000 profit. I say, okay, based on $500,000, value of your business is, let's say, $2 million. Right? So that is based on information I'm getting. So, but the point here is, yes, you can go there, but CPA can only tell you, unless they are familiar with the business and the valuation and all that, they can just tell you how much money you're making and all that. But CPA cannot tell you, most CPA cannot tell you how much a business value is, unless they really, for whatever reason, they have knowledge about that. So
let's talk about the financing. So financing for a business, when you're selling a business, do big banks finance smaller businesses, or do they stay away from them? And do those typically have owner financing, or what type of financing is available? Is it fixed rate? Is it variable? How much down payment? Is it long-term, short-term?
Yeah, 90% of the businesses, if they have good books and records, can be financed. If books and records and the asking price or the agreed price, would justify the income they see. So, but financing, again, 9 out of 10 times, the banks are going to ask the seller to carry. So they call it skin in the game. They wanted that the seller has some skin in the game, that 6 months from now, if the buyer calls and asks question, because it's business. So it's not that, a house you go in, have an inspection. So it could be some situation come that the new buyer is not familiar, and then you call the seller. You own the business for years and years, and ask him, hey, this situation come up. So if the seller has his own money still embedded in the business, is more willing to help you because he wants to get his monthly check. So for that reason, really 9 out of 10 times, the banks would ask the seller to carry something. For example, 15%, 10%, 20%, not more than that. So it means that the bank says, okay, the buyer has to bring 30% down, the seller takes 20% back, and we finance 50%. That is most of the time with little bit variable here. That is usually what the banks do. 50% and 50% or a little bit up or down is financed by the buyer and by the seller. There are professional business like in medical, that a doctor comes to buy a business that is a doctor related and he's going to work there. That is where the banks say, okay, you know what, this doctor is working for 10 years anyway, so he's going to go there and do the same thing. So we don't need to sell her to carry anything. So that happens, but 9 out of 10 times. And then if your books and records are not warranting a regular loan, so you cannot take them to to any investor, any bank, and ask for money, and that is where the seller has to carry if he wants to sell. So the seller agrees to get something 20, 30, 40, 50% upfront, and then the rest is carried for whatever amount of time and amount agreed upon. And that happens a lot in the selling business, especially if there's some cash involved and is not showing, but they can prove that is not financeable. Then the seller says, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to finance it myself."
Got it. Who does the financing? Is it like big banks like Wells
Yes,
Fargo? Is it
yes.
community banks?
Bank of America, community banks, really, all banks are, and if the books and records are really good, you can get an SBA loan. And the SBA loan is little less down payment. They still look for, and again, there is no loan called SBA. That's again, most people misunderstand. They think the government is sitting there. You give the government your paperwork, and the government, you give them 10%, they give you the rest of the money. It doesn't exist something like that. The SBA loan is being given by the same bank that giving regular loans. So, for example, Bank of America or whatever bank you go to, Wells Fargo. SBA is only a government program that guarantees the loan for the banks. So the bank has still go through their own due diligence, approve the business for loan, and then they have to go through the SBA's due diligence because they have their own set of rules and regulation and approve for that. Then you can get a loan with lower down payment, and but the loan is coming from the bank, any bank you go to.
I love it. Let me ask you this. What type of length? Is it like a 10-year, 5-year, 15?
Business is between 7 to 10 years.
And then rate, is it variable? Is it fixed?
Yeah, it is variable, usually for 3 years, the first 3 years, but is higher than regular home, is somewhere between 7 to 9.5%, depending on the business, credibility, and all that stuff. So
Does it make a difference if you sell the business with the real estate? And then
yes,
how do you value those two things separately, the real
yes,
estate and the business, basically?
yes. So you have to, this both is handled separately, absolutely separately. You can get a loan for the real estate, like a 30-year loan, like any other property. For the business, you're still going to get a 7 to 10 years. And but if the property is involved in the selling or a business, then usually the down payment is lower. So if you regularly need to only for the business pay 30%, 40% down payment, then if your business is the property is involved, you may get away with 20-25% down payment
Got it.
because there is a value of the property that they know they can collect.
So let me ask you this. You mentioned non-competes, which that's really big when doing a business, I imagine, like so that it keeps the owner from opening up a shop across the street. You mentioned the owner potentially helping you or being available for you. These are all things that you can negotiate in the contract. What are other things that you can negotiate that would be important when, as a buyer, if I was buying a business?
It depends on the business. You see, for example, if it's a business that need negotiations, for example, there are businesses. I sold one that they bring like nuts, like different kind of nuts from different part of state, or sometimes even from other countries, and they do distribution here. So that kind of contracts that you have with the growers um, are negotiated every year. For that, you need skill. So it's not that easy. It's hey, I'm gonna sell my pistachios a ton, $10 a year. Doesn't exist. Next year, if less water, no water, better product, low product, whatever, the price is going to fluctuate.
Yeah.
So you need to have skills in negotiation. So that's why Usually, between 15 days and 30 days is a business transition that a seller is obligated and is part of the sale. Again, it has to be negotiated. Is in the contract that after the sale is closed, the seller is there to transition the business to new buyer, introduce, the vendors, the customers, whatever things that didn't tell him because of being business secrets before selling, right? So that happens after that. But then you can have some owner, some businesses hire the seller for a year. They tell him, you know what, I'm going to pay you consulting fee. Every time I call you for a consult or you consult me, I'm going to pay you hourly rate or monthly rate, or I'm sorry, daily rate. I'm going to fly you to Texas to negotiate with this grower with me. And I'm going to pay you for every day, I don't know, $5,000, for example, or whatever you think is that. So that way you bind this person in the contract that when I need you, I'm going to pay you this amount of money and you're going to come and help me. Or sometimes they hire them as a consultant part-time for next 2 years, 3 years. They sign a contract with them, 3-year contract. You're going to get, 4 hours a day, 3 days a week, $10,000 a month.
I love it. What about broker commissions?
Yes.
I think when we sold my dad's business, I think the broker was charging like 10% or something like that.
Yes.
What is normal, and does it vary based on the price point as well too? And what is abnormal?
Yes. In my case, for example, it varies on the value of the company. But yes, there is no normal. Some brokers sign up for 3 or 4%. I don't know why, but they do that. I'm going to say they are not experienced. So if they are not experienced to negotiate their rate, they are not experienced to sell your business. So, but anyway, there is like a property. There is no rate. It's negotiations, but average is somewhere between 7.5 to 12%.
Somewhere in that range,
Yeah.
basically.
That would be, I'm going to say, normal depending on the value. If it's a business is $50 million, I would be glad they go to 7.5%.
So let me ask you this. Before you determine if you're going to take on a business or help them sell their property, what questions would you ask the business
Yeah,
to
that is
determine?
it.
To
In my
determine,
case, it's very important to me because I don't take I take some, as I said, some even to lie to get a listing. One, they think after a while, after 6 months, they sit on it, they go to the buyer, and the buyer tell the buyer, oh, I'm sorry, we evaluated your business at $3 million. The market has changed. Now is the business $1 million. So, and then they get another piece of paper from them saying, okay, now you're allowed to sell my business for $1 million. So, and the seller, depending on, how long that signature or amount of the time was, you can get under that, even if they get angry because they get lied at. So, uh, in my case, it's different. For them, it's important to have listings. Some broker, they pride themselves saying, I have 20 listings. So I asked them, how many did you sell? I haven't sold even one, right? So to me, important is a business that I have a chance to sell. Even if the business is really good valued and really good company, it doesn't mean you're going to sell it. It's a business. It could be sitting with you 6 months and nobody wants to buy it. No, you don't even get a penny an offer on, not even one offer for a penny, right? So there's no guarantee. But definitely you're not going to sell it if you are overpriced, right? So for that reason, to me, is very important that I take the listing at the price that I think, with the information I have at that time, that I have a chance to sell this business. So if a seller, which happens mostly because of other people's, tell them, hey, this and that, that, I say, okay, you know what, you need another broker. I don't have a buyer for you. That's usually what I say. I'm sorry, I don't have a buyer for you. So I don't argue with them. I try a little bit to educate them, but at the end when they say whatever they say, then I don't have a buyer for you. Thank you very much. You have my number. If anything changes, call. Because I'm not gonna. The same guy who expects to get $10 million for a $2 million business. And if I'm stupid enough to take that listing, now he's calling me from second week. Where is my buyer? Where is my buyer? You know, and you're answering him, hey, I'm doing whatever I can do. There is no buyer. What do you mean there is no buyer? You're my seller. Why did I give you? You're going to get 10% if you sell my business. Why are you doing nothing? You know, because they think now they listed at $10 million, they really get the $10 million because they know the value of their business is not even, 1/5 of that. So, but if usually a seller is reasonable, you don't have that kind of hassling, I have many times I cancel the listing because the seller, even at a good price, they are in a hurry to sell sometimes for a good reason, family issues and all that. But I don't have a buyers in my pocket. All I can do is what I do to sell a business. So sometimes I come to that conclusion, it's not worth it for me, for my health is not good enough to keep that listing. And I just send an email, cancel their listing. I say, thank you very much for the opportunity, but you are in a hurry and the business doesn't sell in a hurry. So you maybe,
How long does it typically take to sell a business?
I have sold the businesses within 24 hours, really 24 hours. That I put a listing on Thursday and on Monday I got 3 offers. And in few occasions, above my asking price, even. Depend on type of the business, depend whoever is out there looking. And sometimes the businesses that I would say, if I wanted to buy a business out there, I would buy this particular business. I was so sure I can sell it, good listing price, good income, sitting there for a year, nobody wants it. Really in business is not, you can say, I'm going to sell. But what I know this, if an agreement is signed, the purchase agreement is signed by both parties and financing or whatever is possible, available, or cash buy, or however the agreement is, usually takes 60 to 90 days to close a deal.
What about contingencies? What type of contingencies exist when you open up a
Usually
business?
it's very limited, very few contingencies. The biggest contingency is that verification of the income, the net income and all that. That's very important to the satisfaction of the buyer. And then that they are, the licenses and everything, if they have any licenses or related to any kind of license, that they are in good standing, no court proceeding or anything like that is against them. And they are not tied up in any lawsuits and anything like that. And if they have contracts, the contingency, those contracts is possible to be signed over. If there are managers, then you have a contingency of interviewing the manager before closing or before escrow opening, but most of the time after escrow opening, to make sure that, when you live in, the 3 managers running this company, they are not leaving too, because then you stay in there and, nothing happening and you lost the business you just bought. So that depends on type of the business. Obviously, verification of inventory is one of the contingencies, because some people say, I have $100,000. It doesn't mean I'm going to pay you $100,000. So we need to verify that. So depend on really on the business. If there is, the more professional a business is, the more contract this business has either to buy or a service to render, the more contingencies has to be in place. So if I have a business I'm servicing, let's say 100 companies, I have to be sure that after this guy sells, I still can service those 100 companies. It's not binded to this guy, the seller.
Yeah.
So, but you have to understand, in a retail related business, it means if it's a type of business that people walk in for a service or purchase of items, whatever. Usually, if the seller, the owner change, you lose 10 to 20% of your business. And there's some people just come to this business because they like this guy. That is standing there, the owner. They like this owner. They really don't care about, the price. Even if this guy sells something and his next door sells less, but I like this guy, his joke or whatever. I know him for a year, so I go to his store. So these people may stay away, but usually half of them come back within first 3 to 6 months again. And the reason is again that we are all, animals of habit. So we like to go to the same place and find that same stuff and go home. So for that reason, retail business, you have in the beginning a little bit loss, you gain them back, at least half of it as the time goes by very shortly. And then, but it's not really a loss because there are always people who didn't go to this business because of the previous owner. So now if they find out you're the new owner, the owner has changed, now they're going to come to this business. So you know,
I love it.
Well, yeah, it just evens itself more or less. So
That's
it's not
great.
a scary thing. So it's not scary.
Any final words, Shawn, or any final advice to somebody looking to sell a business?
To sell a business, yes, be realistic with your pricing. Okay, really, that's all I can say. Second, to the buyer, most importantly, don't fall in love with the business. Then you get blind like every other love, and you may pay a price you don't want to pay, and you don't look where you're supposed to look to find out. It's you buying a business because it makes money, not because it's glamorous. I rather buy a business that is in a hole that nobody wants to see. I cannot show to anybody because there is no glamour in there, but it makes me ton of money. Then buying a business because, oh my God, I can bring people and say, oh, look at this guy. What kind of business he has? Oh, look at this. But then every month I sell my house in order to finance my business.
Yeah, not worth it.
Not worth it at all.
Or a business that you have to be, that requires a lot of your energy, time, and resources as well,
For
too.
that reason, as a buyer, no matter what, no matter how much it's going to cost you, you hire advisors, accountants, CPAs, lawyers. I rather spend $10,000 and not buy a business than spend $2 million in a business and lose that $2 million.
100%.
If you finance your business through the bank and your house is the collateral, if you can't pay the bank is going to take your house away. There is no understanding. So I rather lose $10,000, even $20,000 evaluating a business and by other people, so I'm not involved emotionally, and go by those reports, verify those reports, then buy a business with confidence. Then you say, oh, no, I trust this guy. I know him for 10 years. I come to this business for 10 years myself. I know these people. I would not do that.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people look at inspections or advisors as a cost. It's not a cost. It's an investment.
It is.
100%.
It is like, your house. You want to buy a house, you pay somebody $1,000 to do your
Appraiser.
inspection because you want to make sure that there's no mold or whatever. It's going to cost you $20,000. I bought a new house 3 months ago, and I got the inspection, and we find out there are termites. So I negotiated. They wanted to do some. I said no. I'm not going to go for that. You want to sell your house to me? I agreed to that price. I still gonna pay you this, but I need a fumigation. So he had to go and spend $12,000, put a tent my house, and show 5 days of fumigation. I'm gonna do that. If he would have said no, I wouldn't have never bought this house. But I never would have found out about this if I wouldn't have paid that $800 or whatever I paid the inspector.
Yeah. That's amazing. Cool. Well, I want to say thank you, Shawn, for taking the time to be on the podcast. Today, we learned how to sell a business. We talked about valuations. We talked about financing. We talked about due diligence. We talked about inspections. We talked about marketing. We talked about brokers as well, too, what to watch out for. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you feel that this episode would be helpful, make sure to hit that share button and share it with a friend. Thank you so much, Shawn. I really appreciate it. And to our viewers, until next time.